What's happening? This is Avedon, and welcome to the Beats for Breakfast morning show. Today, I am joined by a very, very special guest, Mr. Rob of Ruler 2 Review. How are you doing, man? Thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah, I'm doing fantastic, and thank you so much for having me on. Super honored. I've seen a couple of your recent episodes. Stoked with what you're doing here. I
Thank
love the
you.
show and the channel and what you're doing. Of course, I think you're killing it, man. Like, passion comes through so much, even on your normal channel, and then with what you're doing here, there's such a dedication to it. I think it's really cool. I think
Thank
it's
you.
needed. I think what you're trying to do is definitely needed. And like I said, I'm just honored to be a part of it, man. So I'm stoked.
It's honor. It's an honor for you to say that because honestly, with my old channel, which I didn't really abandon so much, but I put more of a focus on this channel, is because we're going to talk more about that later on in this interview. But kind of like how you stated in your the state of YouTube gaming, and I just saw YouTube gaming for me as somebody who is growing is not someplace where I want to be. I don't want to be somebody 10 years, 15, 20 years down the line talking about only video games, where I am somewhat, I'm not going to say I'm fully proficient, but I'm somewhat proficient in music where I could talk about it for hours upon hours, where I could talk about business for hours, and I could talk about games and other things for hours. And I feel like there's such a place where I want people who are content creators to kind of throw the YouTube hat off for a second, to throw the gaming hat off for a second, and just have fun. Let's just have a talk about some cool stuff, man. To start off, for the people that don't know you, I know you, but for the people who don't know you, who is Rob of Rule of 2 Review?
Well, on YouTube, Rob of Rule of 2 Review is pretty much just like a passion project YouTube channel. On YouTube, I started it in 2013. And it just was, gaming stuff on YouTube was only kind of starting to bubble up and become a little bit more serious. At the time, you probably remember, it was mostly, when you thought of gaming on YouTube, it was like almost entirely PewDiePie and Markiplier Let's Play videos. It was all funny and jokes, and it was, great. My friends and I watched that stuff a lot and laughed at it. But that was all it was. But I started to come across a couple of channels around that time that were actually just about like talking about video game, like weird news stories and stuff. A big one for me was Review Tech USA. And like at that time, he was like 150,000, like way smaller, and he wasn't like big in a community. He was just a guy who would talk for 5 minutes about video games. And I was like, I could do that. Like, I've got stuff to say about video games. So I had Rule of 2 Review as like a WordPress blog site that was about reviewing movies and video games in like 2010, and had some podcasts on iTunes with some of my friends. But then we kind of stopped doing that, and then I got that YouTube itch, around that time, and I just started doing it. And now it's pretty much just me blabbing for a very long time. My videos are super long-winded about like one topic. I pick one topic that's, interesting to me, or is like a relevant news story that's gaming focused, and usually Nintendo, because they're my favorite company and they're the most interesting to talk about too. And I just, for 10, 15, 20 minutes, I just kind of break down, my unique kind of perspective on whatever's going on. And it's really just become a great outlet for me to literally just like vomit so many thoughts I have about something going on, like, oh, definitely. Nintendo has a Joy-Con drift issue, so I've got 15 minutes worth of thoughts I just want to like say. And that's what I've turned Rule of 2 Review into. And it's been pretty, I'm part-time. I just do it on the side because I've got a job, just like most of us, working the grind. But I've been doing it part-time for like 6 years now, and it's done pretty darn well. Like, I'm pretty proud of what I've built it up to be. So it's what it is.
For one, I would say one of the things that I really admired about your content is the fact that you have long-tailed content. It's like you're not the traditional person who talks for like 5 or just 10 minutes to fit into that algorithm. You will talk straight through for 15 to 30 minutes. And the thing about it is, your content, I could sit through it and it feels like it wasn't even that long. And to relate this to music, it's like a good song. Like, good music doesn't feel, you can listen to a good song for a long time, but it doesn't feel like the amount of time you listen to it. And that's why I appreciate your content for it. You talk about great points, and I'm like, okay, he has a few good points. And next thing I know, you're closing up like, wait, The video's over?
Wait, it's been 29 minutes already? How did he do that?
So I would say, for you to do this part-time for the amount of years you're doing it and still hit over 10K of a 10K of a loyal followers. I'm not going to say subscribers because I feel like supporters rather. I feel like subscribers is so cliche and it's just so YouTube-ish. You've hit so many supporters who are willing to watch your content, and that's awesome, man. For not many people could do that.
Thank you.
There's people who can't even get people to watch them for just 5 minutes. If you could maintain attention for double and triple that is amazing.
Yeah, I thank you. I really appreciate it. It feels super good to hear that, and it kind of like justifies like what you do if you're in a position like me, and also like you, because I'm assuming that YouTube isn't your day job either. You probably have a job, yeah. So for someone like us to have like jobs that we do, but then also put our time and energy like in our free time into like doing this YouTube thing, it feels good to kind of see people follow you in such a way, or give you support, watch your stuff. Interact with you and just all that. And also getting to know other people in the community, like, you and I have like a pretty good solid base of other people who do this that we're familiar with and talk to. And a lot of them, I've already seen you're having guests on your show here. So it feels good when you get to that point, right? You're like, oh, like maybe there is like a value in what I'm doing and it is like worth my time, and obviously if you enjoy it, that's when it's something you should be doing. But beyond enjoying it, if it also like reaches people and people like tell you that they appreciate what you're doing, that just always feels good. So yeah, I don't know how I manage to make my videos so long sometimes, but I will say part of the reason I do it is because, I say as much as I have to say. And if that's 15 or 23 minutes, then that's just what it is, because it's that much I had to say. But also, like, for me personally, that's the kind of stuff I watch. Like when I'm just watching YouTube, like any other normal person, like finding my own gaming or music or movie videos that I'm watching and stuff like that, I like longer content. I like content that's more about just the conversation. Like if a person or a couple people are breaking something down, like just chewing the fat of like a thing to talk about, that's most interesting. Do that for 47 minutes, and I am so on board with that. I don't need all the flashy editing and the zooms and the special effects. Like that's less interesting to me. I just like people who talk. So podcasts are great. The stuff that you're doing is great. And on your old channel too. Your podcast, all that stuff is like, that's what I prefer to listen to is long form content. And I think I ended up creating that sort of by accident as Rule of Two Review became what it is. If that makes sense.
It makes a lot of sense because, even the older that I'm getting, I'm appreciating longer tailed content myself. It's the shorter videos. Well, it depends, because some longer tailed content, when I feel like it's algorithm focused, and I don't necessarily enjoy. It depends on the creator. Some creators I still enjoy it, but other creators where I feel like if I don't really have an established base with you, then I probably won't listen, because it's going to feel like the same person I listened to before, or the people I have listened to. Whereas I listen to your stuff because 9 times out of 10, you have a different take or a deeper take on the things that I've already heard, the things I haven't really considered. And that's why, like I said, I enjoy your content. In fact, I need to put your stuff on notifications so I know when stuff.
Look at that bell.
I need to click that bell for yourself, because your content is stuff that I like. And even while I'm at my job, that's stuff that I like listening to, where I have some downtime. So I want to actually get into some music questions, because you are a full-time musician, right?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
Yeah. No, full-time alongside of having a job too, so how the best way you can do that. So,
I get it, because basically when you're off your day job, I'm pretty much safe to say every day is a practice day. Almost every single day you're practicing. Get it? See, I understand 100%. How long have you been an active musician, and if you play multiple instruments, how many instruments do you play?
Well, see, how long have I been an active musician? I would say, for a while, because I'm older than people think too. I'm 39 this year,
Wow.
And so I've been, and I started playing, like, performing in, like, a serious band when I was 20. So that would have been around 2000 or
Sheesh.
2001. Yeah, so it's been since, so I guess, God, 19 years, coming up on 20 years since I've been, like, performing and writing and stuff. Now, to be fair, going back that far, it was like not so much professional. It was just a bunch of, like, we were just a bunch of young idiots who just like to party and drink, and we played in this, like, loud, rowdy punk band, and we played shows in, like, small little dive bars and stuff, and we just had, like, a great time for a couple years, and we did see some success, but that was like the early on stuff. The last, probably, I want to say, when I got into some really serious stuff that was not just about gigging, but was also about, like, the writing and the recording process and a lot of that. That was a band that I started and joined in 2007. So I would say on that kind of, like, next tier serious level, because my playing also got a lot better around that time too, I would say 13 years feels a little bit more accurate. I was playing, low key shows in 2001, but by 2007, I was doing some more serious stuff. But still a while, right? That's 13 years that, like, since I've been doing that. And I mean, I play drums. Obviously, that's like my main instrument. I'm a drummer.
Okay.
And so some people will tell you that drummers are not musicians. They are liars, and they are talking crap, and they're not. It's just, I know, right?
How?
I mean, it's just kind of like it's more like a running joke in the music industry, but drummers aren't musicians. I can tell you that. And so that's my main focus. And it was not the initial instrument that I wanted to learn when I was, like, a kid, but it's just kind of what I naturally ended up growing to when I was, like, a mid-teenager, and I just picked it up and I was like, this is my thing. And I stuck with it, and I've turned it into something. And so now I keep really active, and I've been doing professional music, live and some recording stuff for, like I said, 13, 15-ish years or so.
Nice.
So, a while. Yeah.
Nice. See, I've been off and on doing music production since, I would say, this year October will make 16 years. Off and on music production.
Yeah.
I started 2004. I started while I was a junior in high school, and it was in 2004. And I could say this now because I got the real version, but I got the cracked version of Fruity Loops.
Oh, Fruity Loops!
I remember using it back then, and it's like, you really fall in love with that thing. It's like it's so complicated at first, but as the years go on, it's like I learned how to hone my craft. And by 2008, I started having people want to record off the things I was making.
Wow! And you, like, taught yourself, right? It sounds like you just, like, learned. Yeah, okay.
It was mostly self-taught. Like, one of my best friends, like, he got me into it, and I learned a few things. Some of the things that he did, he just gave me the basis of the program, but I had to open the program myself. And back then, you would say 2004, YouTube wasn't prevalent back then with tutorials. So you had to learn yourself. Like, you had to teach yourself on how to do things right. It's how to make things in proper sync, how to get the proper BPM, all that stuff. And I could literally say 2000, and I said this in a previous podcast, but I think, was it 2011? I started coming out with beat tapes, like instrumental albums.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
And I made one beat tape and a compilation albums of remix album. That was 2. That did 2 more beat tapes. That'll be 3 beat tapes. Was that 3 beat tapes? Yep, 3 beat tapes and an EP. So 5 projects in the year 2011 alone.
Wow, that's amazing, dude. That's getting it done.
And I loved it. It's like when I got my groove. 2009 was the first summer where I did not have a job, and I didn't like it. So literally, I spent my whole entire day just working on music. I think I made 100 new tracks just trying to hone my craft. Like, different, I didn't care if they were throwaways or not. I just said, let me keep making. So I get it. Where you put the years in and you say, like, you don't really count the years, because I didn't really count my years of being active until 2011 when I started
Gotcha.
going out and putting myself on blogs, and more
Mm.
people are reaching out to me, and I'm starting getting placements.
You're
on-
promoting yourself, you're networking, right? And
Exactly.
trying to know people and get them to know you. And just really, it sounds like that's when you were trying to actively get your music out there, kind
Yep.
of.
Exactly. And as of now, I think 2014, I went on a hiatus and I've been off and on. And as of now, 2020, I announced it. I announced it a few podcasts ago that I'm more focused on being a sound designer than a producer. Like, because I went from being a beat maker to a producer, where I was literally producing albums for people, directing, track listing, all of that, to now I just want to create the sounds for other producers and other beat makers to use, because I know how to do that. So music is fun. And I didn't mean to like take over with the whole thing with the music conversation. It's just
No,
like,
dude, that's what we're here to talk about. It's all good.
It's like, I just always get excited with music because it's something that even to this day, I have, I'll tell you off air. So you guys watching the podcast, make sure you guys, stay tuned for future projects, but I do have a few projects cooking up that I feel like everyone will enjoy. So
sweet.
Can't wait.
Very cool. I'm very curious. I want all the deep, dark secrets you got. I want them all.
Definitely. But we got to talk about a little about gaming and music, because gaming soundtracks for me were a good part of my inspiration in my process musically. And I wanted to know, was it the same for you? Has gaming music ever inspired you?
Oh, for sure. Oh my gosh. I mean, if anything, what's interesting about gaming music, right, is that it started off so simple when we were growing up, with the 8 and 16-bit kind of chiptune stuff. But for me, there was kind of like I actually had like a bit of a seminal moment with music in gaming when I realized that was an element that was going to the next level, because so we all grew up like with gaming, and we were seeing, systems would get better, controllers would change, graphics would get better. And we were always focused on the graphics, right? Like for the most part, especially as kids, you're like, ooh, 8-bit, 16-bit, 32-bit, and 64, PlayStation, Xbox. And like every time we thought about, gaming getting better and cooler, it was because the graphics were getting better. But there was a moment where I realized one of the other elements that I hadn't even been thinking about, the music, the quality of the music was also improving, was the first Halo. Dude, it's such, and to this day, I still think the overall score to everything Halo, all of the music throughout that whole series, is some of the very, very best. I mean, top 5 probably, as far
Halo
as like
2 intro. The majority the remix blew my mind. So I get you.
Yeah, and it was so like cinematic, right? It had like a different kind of like bombastic orchestral approach. And even just the chanting, right? Because like the first Halo, just as a game, was like such a monumental big deal, right? Like everyone remembers where they were when they realized Halo was awesome back in the day. And like that game opens the title screen and you have that chanting, right? Like the like a choir.
Yeah.
And I was like, and it made you feel it. And I was like, that's just like people singing. Like, I can't believe I'm just hearing people sing in a video game just in the title screen. And then the music, the score to Halo, it's very much symphonic. It's very much cinematic, but it's also got tunes of like energy with like, really pounding drums, and even like kind of some pseudo guitar licks you can hear way in the background. And I just was like, this is crazy. Like, part of the reason this game is so amazing isn't just because the graphics are awesome and the gameplay is great, but like this music is transcending my experience of this game. And so that absolutely inspired me. And then, other great gaming soundtracks, like Final Fantasy is great, The Legend of Zelda, obviously Metroid is a personal one for me as well. All of that stuff, when you realize that music is playing such a big part in your gaming experience, if you also have a musical side to you that kind of like fires things in your brain, right? And you're like, this makes sense, and this makes sense, and this is great. And so and that was also happening at a time where I was really starting to take my drumming and my music seriously. So it all kind of just coincided really well for me. So yeah, I mean, Halo's not my favorite soundtrack, but it really is one of the most important moments for me as far as like music and video gaming. It's just like catching on to what that first game did. It's so amazing.
I can relate so much because it's funny that you mentioned we could hear different things
Mhm.
musically. When I started sampling early, so I would take um, Sonic the Hedgehog 3 music or Streets of Rage or Castlevania music
Yeah, all
or
good stuff.
or
All
the
good stuff.
or the original Ninja Gaiden, like the original
Mm.
Ninja Gaiden one on the NES, and I would even take the MIDI samples of them so I could tweak them a lot more than taking the MP3. And I would question to myself. I said, I wonder how this would sound slowed down, or I wonder
Mm.
how this would sound, adding some reverb to it. I wonder how this would sound, changing this instrument to this instrument. And the there was this one song that I made. I cannot remember it, but one of my friends, he actually bought the beat off me because
Wow.
I made a Ninja Gaiden song that was so fast, sound like a dark, almost Halloween esque type beat. It
Mm.
was like a Sleepy Hollow type feel.
Yeah,
And
yeah, yeah,
so it was like it was that beat,
yeah.
and I slowed it down and instead of a chiptune sound, I had a piano playing instead, a dark piano playing instead.
Sweet. Oh
So
yeah, that sounds really eerie. Like I feel like that's what it would feel like,
and the way the
Like
beat would come on, I had the beat fade in instead.
nice.
And
You still have it? Do you still have access to that at all? Or
I gotta find it's probably on my older hard drives that
yeah,
it's,
lost on some old hard drive or something. Or,
but the way I did it, I remember I I'll probably I gotta ask my friend. He probably still has it. Hopefully he
yeah.
has it. Cause what I loved about it was I had funny you mentioned a choir. When listening to Halo, I got the idea of adding a choir
Mm.
to a choir mixed with a good bass line.
Oh,
So
nice. Okay, cool.
so it's like you have like
Respect the bass. You gotta respect the bass, man.
it. I didn't understand it at that age, but now I understand
Yeah.
how much flavor it adds. But
Hmm.
it got me so excited back then, and it's like people told me back then that I was able to do something with video game beats and make them sound like fit for hip hop, and I was like, okay. I just had fun with this as a kid, but hearing that now and looking back at it, it's like I get it now. So that's why
Yeah.
I feel you when he said Halo, because I think of Castlevania, I think of the original Street Fighter soundtrack. To
Hmm.
this day, I still have on one of my under my old alias, which is still up on YouTube, which I'll let you probably guys see this during the commercial break as well, along with some of Rob's stuff. But I actually sampled Balrog's theme.
Oh wow. Okay. From
And
Street Fighter 2?
yep, the original
Okay.
Street Fighter 2 Balrog's theme.
Yeah.
And I remember sampling it a few times, but I had this one preset called Hypersonic 2. And I just said, let me just add some saxophone horns, a horn section. Let me add some synths. And to this day, I don't promote that beat or anything. Over 30,000 views on YouTube. And I uploaded
Wow.
it 10 years ago.
Dang. So
So,
people caught on to that. They're like, there's something here. And it got
yes.
into the zeitgeist for some people for sure.
So that's why I have to say, for me, gaming has always inspired me,
Yeah.
and that trickled into anime, and that trickled into just all types of music, where my ear could listen to almost anything now. So
Mhm.
definitely love it. But you mentioned some of your favorite soundtracks. You said what are some of your favorite gaming soundtracks?
Well, definitely. I mean, so Halo is one of them for sure. Like I said, I think the whole scope of everything Halo to me is probably like a top 5 video game score. It's more like a score than a soundtrack, the way those
Yeah.
games are done. But I'm a Nintendo guy, so I am a sucker for all of the Legend of Zelda music, and I'm a sucker for all of the Metroid music. I mean, as far as
Yes.
music goes, I don't know if I would say those are the most like prolific or like famous Nintendo music, because all of their games have famous music. I mean, if you go back to like F-Zero and stuff, and Donkey Kong back in the day, and so much famous Mario music, right? Especially
Yeah.
like in the 8 and 16-bit era. But there's something about, I think, specifically the whole like breadth of music for Metroid and for Zelda. and they're just so special. They're so special. I think for The Legend of Zelda, a soundtrack that I think doesn't get enough credit is Skyward Sword's music. I think that it has some of the best. Right? Hopefully you agree.
Thank you. Thank you.
It's so good.
Thank you.
It's so, dude. There is some music in there. It's borderline like emotional. Like I can hear it and just almost get choked up. I'm like, it's so beautiful. And you like remember like what scene it was playing over, right?
I forgot what temple it was. It was one of the most like epic looking temples. It was a golden. It was like a lot of gold. I remember it was gold and bluish type. It was like a water temple type temple.
There is, I think, second place you go, second or third, because you go to like a forest temple first, which is underground.
Yeah.
And there is a water temple. There's a lot of swimming in that one though, so I don't know. Maybe it's that one.
I gotta know this now.
Yeah. You should look it up.
I have to know this because this is something. It is a Skyward Sword water temple.
Okay.
That temple, the music in that temple blew me away. It blew me away indeed, and I absolutely loved it. I also love the music where you're fighting against Demise. Oh
yeah, for sure, dude. That whole scene. We don't want to get too far away from the music part, but just dude, that whole scene is so good. Music and just the fight, and just when you see Demise for the first time,
war drums. Like, you hear the war drums going.
Whoa. Oh, it's so freaking good, man. It's so good. There's also there's some scenes in that game where you're talking to like Impa, and she's the one who's kind of like walking you through some of the elements of like the time travel parts of the story. And there's some like really like soft, beautiful music that plays there. And it's really, in my opinion, some of the most creative music they ever made for a Zelda game.
Agreed.
And like, Skyward Sword is kind of one of those black sheep games where like people think it's like not the best Zelda, or it's kind of controversial. And I just think it's a great game. I think it's borderline underrated, It
is underrated.
Yeah.
I feel as though for people the reason why it catches so much flack is because of the motion controls. But outside of the motion controls, if you could configure that game to play with a regular controller, that game is easily in the top 5 for me. Easily.
Agreed. I even put it there with the weird motion controls. I think it's that good of a game.
Let me think about that, because my number one, it's not everyone's favorite number one, but this is my number one, is Majora's Mask.
Okay, good choice. My best buddy, that's his favorite. So
Majora's Mask is my number one. Then comes it fluctuates between Ocarina of Time and Link to the Past.
Okay.
So between those two, number 4, believe it or not, Link's Awakening.
Okay.
Because that was the first Zelda I ever played. And then, you know what?
You got Breath of the Wild, though, man. You're forgetting about Breath of the Wild.
Yeah,
forgetting about Wind Waker.
Oh my gosh, there's so many.
You're forgetting about the first Zelda. There's so many.
There's so many good ones. Breath of the Wild is slowly climbing down the list for me, only because.
Interesting.
And here's my take: why that game's close. You know what? It's fitting that we're talking about it.
Yeah.
Music. The ambiotic style of music didn't hit for me, because when I played Zelda, every Zelda game I played, you get a sense of adventure, you get a sense of epicness, and even when you saw the trailer for Breath of the Wild, you got that same sense of adventure. Then we play the actual game.
Yeah.
It's like, it's very ambiotic. Not only that, the world is mostly empty. There are enemies and stuff, and there are puzzles you can do, but I feel as though the game is a little too empty and too quiet at times. And for me, that takes away the essence of what made Zelda to me growing up.
Yeah. That's interesting. I have a slightly different take. Yeah, mostly in the sense that, because like what you're saying is definitely true. Like it goes for like there's a lot of like loneliness in that game, right? Where you're just by yourself. It is quiet. There's not a lot that you're seeing or doing in the moment. I still think the game is like a perfect 10 personally,
Definitely.
But there is a lot of that to it. And they did have a very different approach to the music, because like you said, they are going for like an ambience kind of feel with it, right? It's not this big bombastic like music playing. Like Twilight Princess is a good example where the music makes you feel like you're on the adventure the whole time, right? Like you're saying. And like, Breath of the Wild didn't do that, and it is a big change to Zelda. But I actually kind of really loved that about the game. And I get how somebody like wouldn't like that, especially for Zelda, where it's known for so much music, like you said. But I've gotten to this point, and maybe it's just like, as I get older, I like this about games. I actually like games that are like quieter and slower, and where I like if I turn on Twilight Princess, for example, or like even Ocarina of Time, and if you're running around Hyrule Field in either of those games, you're in this huge field, you're in Hyrule, and there's things, and you got your sword, and there's this music that's just like bump, 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 and it's going and it's building, and it's freaking awesome music. Like the music is awesome, but it just goes and goes and goes. And so I'm like, well, I don't really feel like I'm like exploring here because I got places to go, and the music is like making me feel like I'm on my adventure. I got to go, go, go. And with the Breath of the Wild, or even like Skyrim is another great example that does this, where it is just like the ambient stuff, and it's like it just like flourishes a little bit as you're running around the world, and so I've come to really love that in games where I don't have to just be sitting there and go 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 action action action. I like the relaxation part of playing video games. I kind of do it to relax, and I love a Smash Brothers or a Call of Duty as much as the next guy, where it is just action, go, fight, kill, go. But a game like a Skyrim or a Breath of the Wild, or even like a Dark Souls, believe it or not, where it's a lot of like quietness and you hear the environments more than the music, I've come to really appreciate that. So in Breath of the Wild, I actually loved that they did that. I miss the traditional amazing Zelda music, and it would have been cool if they wrote more new Zelda music for that game. But I really just loved running around that world kind of without the music, as weird as that sounds, right? For Zelda.
I could see that because my first playthrough, I enjoyed it a lot too. But you know what was the last Zelda game I was playing right before that Zelda game? Wind Waker on the Wii U.
Yes. Do you like that game?
I love it. I still have yet to finish it. I love that game.
It is my favorite Zelda of all time. Is the Wind Waker.
I respect that, and to do some across parallel between that game is very lonely as well. You're out in the ocean half the time.
Yeah.
And when you're sailing on the ocean, you hear that overworld music. It's just like...
You do. Yeah, you do.
It feels like... And then at nighttime, then it's like... It fits so well at night because it's like everything is dead. Yeah. So... Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, it's interesting you bring that up because by coincidence, that is my favorite game, and that game has a ton of music in it. Yes. And I think that game does it so well because, like you said, you've got that music playing when you're sailing through the world, and I can't even now think of it off the top of my head, but it's so good. And so, like Breath of the Wild, I'm like, I love it because there's no music, but then it's like Wind Waker, I love it because of all that great music. So it kind of just depends on the game, I guess. I
get it. I get it, man. But before we detract for too long, we're gonna go ahead for a good commercial break. We're gonna showcase some of Rob's excellent work, and then I'm gonna throw in that Balrog sample for you guys. You guys go ahead and enjoy that. Stay tuned.
It's officially 3 years since the Nintendo Switch launched worldwide on March 3rd of 2017, and it feels crazy to think that it has already been 3 full years that we've had the Nintendo Switch. It blows my mind because in so many ways, it still feels like it's a brand new console. And I also have, maybe partly because I've been doing YouTube so long and I covered Nintendo and video game stuff throughout the entire Wii U era as well, I also have this strong memory of what it was like in the build-up to the Nintendo Switch. Not only the build-up to the launch of the Nintendo Switch, mind you, I mean the build-up to the reveal. I mean the year and a half or so that we lived in a world where all anyone could talk about was the Nintendo NX. That was such a crazy and unique time for gaming, and of course, obviously for Nintendo as well. And I know that I might be a little bit alone when I say this here, but honestly, when I look back on those years and the whole weird Nintendo NX craze of 2015 and mostly 2016, I actually look back at it pretty fondly. I have really good memories of that time. And again, I know a huge part of that, at least for me personally, is just because I was still a YouTuber at that time. I mean, you can go back to Rule of Two review videos from 2015 and 2016, and you are going to see so many videos about Nintendo NX. It's crazy. I mean, at one
Welcome back, and I hope you guys like that commercial break. It's a little bit longer than usual, and we're going to start doing a little bit longer commercial breaks because this is a morning show. We want you guys to sit down and relax, actually enjoy a full show. Not just a regular podcast straight through two people talking, but an actual show. So expect to see some skits down the line and some other content from us. But Rob, you have released a really awesome video, as I mentioned earlier, the state of YouTube gaming. And that video hit home with me because it really made me say that YouTube gaming, it is at its core, is not for me. Like, I don't want to be somebody who's doing YouTube for 10, 20 years down the line, as I mentioned earlier. And I want to actually create more things in an actual business, an actual something that I can rely on and that I can enjoy doing outside of YouTube. And I just want YouTube to be a fun passion project, kind of like where you are. So for other content creators who may feel the same way, what are your suggestions moving forward with YouTube, especially since it is not at all a stable environment to start a business?
Big question, but a good question, and definitely something, man, that I know people think about. And it's almost tricky to answer, at least just from my perspective, because YouTube is in one of the weirdest places we've ever seen, you know, like you were alluding to, and like I talk about my video. I think that I guess I'll just say it. I kind of fear for YouTube. I don't, right? Yeah. I don't know how stable YouTube feels, which was a huge motivating factor for me to even make that video. And, you know, to be transparent, like that video is literally just like 20 or 25 minutes of me just talking to the camera. I mean, it's not like a fancy video. It's really just about the conversation. But I just worry that YouTube either won't be around in 5-ish years or will end up being forced to change into something like almost unrecognizable from what it is now. But that's just a theory. And so with that scary sort of foundation to the idea, as far as like, I guess, suggestions like you ask for people or just kind of thoughts, I think that in the gaming side, because I think, are we trying to maybe focus just on like the gaming? Is that what you think?
I'll say gaming or anyone who's looking to start content in general.
Just content, yeah. I still say do it. I think if somebody's trying to just like get started, or maybe if you already have your own fairly smallish channel and you're like, I like my channel, like I have a job, but I like my channel and I'd sure love to be some bigger YouTuber who gets to do this and make all this money. I still think it's a good time to do it, but I just feel like if you're doing it with, you know, the twinkle in your eye of becoming the next, you know, like Markiplier or PewDiePie people we already mentioned here, if you want to be one of those guys, I would almost tell you to just remove that thought from your brain. And the best thing you can do is say to yourself, I have a thing I want to create. I have conversations I want to have. I have a video production skill that I want to just make use of. And YouTube is a great place to do it, to become like a creative outlet for you. That's when I say you should always do it just because you want to do it. I don't know that YouTube is a place that can really sustain a lot of huge growth anymore. And part of what I talk about in that video is how I feel like for a long time, it was possible for anyone who started a YouTube channel who made really good content to get seen and noticed and to grow even to like the level of like your or my channels and our status, where we're like kind of known, we've got decent following and the subscriber count and all that. And like, we're known. And I was like, if you just do it, you're going to get found because you're just going to. But really the last year or two, as I saw how things were changing and what was happening with YouTube, I kind of changed my mind on that. And I do feel like there might actually be too much competition, quote unquote competition on YouTube for a lot of people to get noticed or discovered or make something of themselves. And I think that sucks. I think I don't want to say it's not fair, but I just think it's unfortunate, that somebody who just like wants to try to become somebody known on YouTube, if you're going to do it, there's just not much to show that you can find success. Nowadays, it's very rare for a channel to come along. And if we stick with gaming, we'll use, someone who we all know and someone who's even a friend of mine, Spawnwave. That channel and John over there is a great example of someone who popped up only a couple of years ago and just hit at the right time. Yeah, at the right way and blew up. Just exploded. And I think that's great. But that is a very rare thing nowadays. 5 years ago, maybe that happened a bit more often, but nowadays that's like one in a trillion almost, it feels like, especially in gaming because there's so many gaming channels. So I don't know. What do you think?
I would say it's great to use John as an example. Shout out to John if you're watching this. It's great to use John because John and like the whole Spawnwave video, they had a formula and they had a format that worked. They were consistent with upload times, upload days, and they were consistent upon the type of quality content that you'll be getting every single day, and improved on that content each and every day. I've seen the growth of John's channel. I started watching John's channel I want to say 2017. So this was when the Switch first came out. When I remember he was at 25K. That's what I remember. He had 25,000 subscribers when I first came across his channel. And I would say it's like, to have growth like that, is great. And the beautiful part about it is, John is a fantastic and a humble guy. Got a chance to meet him in person a few times.
Sweet. Very cool.
Yeah,
nice.
I met him in Long Island, and then I met him again when I went to 20 Games. And it's like, it's great to meet people that are genuine. And I think that's the number one thing I think you should be when you enter this YouTube space is be genuine.
Yeah.
Like, be who you are. I feel as though when you try to create a personality that doesn't fit your character to who you are, then I feel like you're digging a hole for yourself, because you have to spend the rest of your days living up to that person that you created, living up to that monster that you created.
True.
And,
so true.
One of the people that actually spoke about this, rest in peace, but the late Etika spoke about that. He spoke about creating this persona online that you had to live up to. Yeah. And there's just different things. I feel as though the whole YouTube rat race of trying to get the most subscribers or sub counts here and there, I try to hide away from my sub counts. I even try to hide my eyes from looking at how many views are my videos getting these days, because I don't want that to deter me from being creative with the content that I want to create. I have a theory, maybe a silly theory, but if I can sit back and genuinely enjoy my videos, I feel there are at least 1,000 or 2,000, maybe 10,000 of other people who are like me that will feel the same way. And out of close over 7 billion people in the world, those aren't bad odds.
Not at all.
So it's like, I feel as though if I just make music, well, that too, make music or make content in general that is tailored for people who are like myself, then I'm in a good place. But I think that's one thing I would say for a suggestion. If you're gonna make content, make yourself the target market. What are the things that you like seeing? What are the things that you like experiencing on the platform? Kind of like what just Rob said earlier on the during the beginning. He said he watches longer content, thus he makes longer content. Yeah. It comes in full circle. You have to make the content that you like to see. And it's something that Rob Regan and I always said. It's like, be the brand. It's like, let yourself shine through the brand itself. Don't push the content ahead of you. You know, let yourself be ahead of the content and let people remember your personality and what you have to give, you know, instead of the content. I can tell you right now, when I think of Metroid content, Rob, I say it's this way. Okay, it's this way. I gotta go this way on my screen because I messed up with the Chillcast the other day.
Oh, okay.
Rob is the person that comes to mind when it comes to Metroid content because of all of his takes about Metroid. When I think of Japanese gaming, Player Essence comes to mind.
100%.
It's like when I think of gaming news, Spawnwave comes to mind. When I think of gaming takes and gaming opinions, RGTV5 comes to mind. It's like you got to think of who comes to mind with your content, and that's where people actually shine. So you have to make sure you're remembered for one thing. That's my suggestion.
I have to say, the number one thing, one of the great things that you said there that I think is a good thing for people to remember, and I have to double down on, is when you said that you should make yourself the target audience. I cannot stress how much that is so true. That is a great piece of advice, because like a well-known thing in the world of creating any kind of art, if you're making like YouTube videos, if you're making music, if you paint or whatever, it's a very cliched saying, but it is so true, and it's make something you would enjoy. Exactly. If you make something you yourself would enjoy, if you weren't yourself and you watched that YouTube video or you bought that album or you watched that movie, you're going to be like, wow, that's somebody who cares about what they're doing. And it comes through because you're being so honest and genuine about what you're doing. And again, something else you talked about was people who create almost like a character or a monster. You kind of analogize it to like a monster. And it's like then you have to live up to that, right? And you have to live up to that. You have to be that every time you do on YouTube. It's every time you're on camera, you have to be that character. And that can be so dangerous because it's obviously not genuine. It's obviously not who that person really is. And that person can't really be enjoying it the same way as somebody like you or I can, where we're just ourselves talking to a camera or a microphone. And it's so much easier to do what we do because it's just us. And we're just talking and we're just doing, we like video games, so we talk about it. And so I think people watch content like that because they know that person is being sincere. And to be fair, there are people who do character-related things and they do it the right way. Like the Angry Video Game Nerd is a great example. That is more of an acting than it is maybe trying to sell that as who he really is. And we know that other people maybe can try to sell something that isn't really them. And that becomes really dangerous. So yeah, be sincere, be honest and genuine with who you are, and make something that you would like for sure. Also, consistency. I don't know what your thoughts are on that, but man, consistency, it's a secret sauce to YouTube that I think people don't think about, and man, it makes a difference.
I'm laughing because that was exactly the next question I was going to ask you.
There you go.
I was literally going to ask you about consistency and your thoughts about that. So fly away.
I mean, it's kind of like I was saying, I think it is a secret sauce. And again, I framed it this way in my video about this too. I think it's the secret sauce if your goal on YouTube, especially in gaming, is to just really be noticed and make something of yourself. Because we have to remember, some people might make a YouTube channel and not really care if they become big or famous or have subscribers. They might literally just like think it's fun to just put up some videos about gaming every once in a while, and they don't really care. And then it's a different story. But if you're somebody who starts a gaming YouTube channel because you do kind of want to become noticed and have a following and be semi-successful, that's where it's important to remember that, you know, consistency, it just makes a difference. And it's hard because we all live lives. We've all got families and jobs and responsibilities away from this fun hobby. And so it's hard to be consistent for sure. But if you can be consistent, it just makes a difference. And it can take a while, but you know, and I talked about this in the video. I want to hear kind of your opinion on this too. In my video, I was like, you know, what is the right amount of consistent? I don't know. I actually don't know the right answer to the right amount of consistent. I can say what's worked for me as a part-time guy in 6 years who has 12.5 thousand subscribers. For me, consistent has been a couple of times per week. But there are a lot of guys, some of them we named here, guys and girls, you know, a lot of people out there who can do every day. And their thing is every day you're going to get a video, and sometimes you're going to get more than every day. And those people sometimes become much bigger than you or I have been able to become. And maybe it's a once a week thing. Maybe someone can do once a week. And so I don't know what the magic consistency number is, but I do know that if people find a new channel and they watch a new video and they like the video, they like the person, and they go and they look through your channel to just kind of get an idea of what your channel is, if they can probably see that, oh, this is a very regularly uploading channel making this gaming content I like, and I can see, you know, every once in a while they're putting new stuff up, and I like it, it definitely seems worth it for me to subscribe to them. And that's how you can kind of attract people. But if you don't give them any reason to think that, you know, they need to stay tuned to your channel in the future, why are people going to subscribe? So you got to kind of find that balance that works with your life schedule and that works with your passion to do it, and just kind of find that consistency. So I'm curious if you have any thoughts on what you think is the right or wrong level of consistency, or what have you seen?
I would say fantastic take, by the way, because you're right. It's
thanks.
Consistency, I would say it really depends on, you know what, I'm gonna use a music analogy. It depends on it depends on what type of tune you're trying to play, and the types of tune determines the types of instruments you need. And for some people, they can do every day because the tune they're playing requires them to play every day. But there's some other people that I'm going to name one right now. You probably heard of them as well. There's people that can upload once a week and they could blow up. Like, their channel could explode by blowing up once a week. And I'm going to talk about Scott the Wise. Scott the Wise.
Oh, yeah. I know Scott. Yeah.
He has over 800,000 subscribers. And he only uploads once a week. Always has. So, but his content is rich. It's rich, and it feeds to, you know, the audience he's trying to make content for. So in terms of consistency, it's all about, you have to really iron in who's your audience, and you have to really iron in, it's like, what are you consistent at? Because there's so many. Consistency is a multi-layered job, I would say, because one, you have to be consistent with the type of editing you're doing. Like, you have to make sure you have to be consistent with the branding, consistent with the thumbnails. It's like,
oh yeah,
uploads is one thing. Like, I feel like uploading is the easy part with consistency. When you come up with consistency, you have to be consistent with your thumbnails. You have to be consistent with your overlays for your videos. You have to be consistent upon your sound quality, which is something that we don't talk about too much on YouTube.
But we should. We should, though. Makes all the difference, man.
But you got to be consistent with your sound quality, which I'm telling on myself because I did not have the best sound quality on the last episode, which is why I took sound check a lot more seriously this time around. So yeah, there's a lot when it comes to to consistency. I would even say consistent with your upload times, consistent with your growth. How much are you growing? You know?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like a lot of what you say is really good stuff to touch on, because I absolutely, people don't think about it. Yeah, upload consistency is one thing, but like having consistent thumbnails really makes a big difference, and finding a style that works. It's one of those things that is like part of the game of YouTube, and it kind of sucks. You got to play this game this way, but again, if you want to make a bit of an impact, yeah, you got to do it. So finding upload times, like you said too, like I've been doing it long enough, and with like the kind of view to subscriber ratio I get, which is really good for the size of my channel, I'm very proud of that too. Part of that has been I found a style for my thumbnail that works, which means including my face in it for the most part. And the other thing is upload times. Like depending on the day of the week, I know what times are best for my videos to probably get like their max amount of views. With the rare occasion that, you know, a huge news story breaks when I have a day off and I happen to be here, and it's like, oh my God, you know, Metroid 6, 7, and 8 was just announced, and I'm sitting here alone on my day off. I can just turn my camera on and record, and I can get it out right away. That's rare, but when that happens, I'll upload right away. Typically, I'm recording a video and I'm setting it for like the following day, and there's a time of day that I know works. And so being consistent with that is a very smart thing. And those thumbnails, man, they make such a difference. They just make a huge difference. So because people can recognize your brand, the idea is like, and you brought up branding, actually, you mentioned that, which is also huge. When your thumbnails have their own brand, then people know when they see that thumbnail that, oh, that's Avedon's channel, that's Rob's channel. I'm subscribed to them. I like them. So I want to make sure I watch this video because it's a channel that I like. And it's just, you know, fitting yourself in the game, or, you know, the dreaded algorithm. I guess it's part of that part of it too. And that consistency means a lot to people, you know.
A secret sauce when it comes to thumbnails, because for those of you who know me, you guys know that I love making thumbnails. One secret sauce with thumbnails, I would say, is the reason why you want your thumbnails to be consistent in some fashion is because you want people to kind of like see your thumbnail through their peripheral almost. So almost it's like if you have a brand consistent thumbnail, even if they're not fully looking at your thumbnail, if they catch it off their peripheral, they are more likely to catch your work at that point. And that's where they will probably go back or scroll back up to say, wait a second, is this Avalon's work or is this Rob's work? And that's how you'll get priority over someone who's just probably scrolling through YouTube to see what else is on. So that's it's awesome. It's funny that you brought up consistency, because I was literally going to ask.
I read your mind. I read your mind twice today.
Today, yes, today you did. But I do want to ask you one more thing about consistency, though. Now, there's something else about consistency we don't talk about, and that is being consistent with just your content in general. Because we as people, as we get older, we change, and the things that we like talking about or we like doing, as we get older, we may not like talking about those things no more. So for someone who wants to still stay in the realm of content creation, what is your advice for them overcoming this hurdle? Because there are people who have created large brands, they have large channels where they can't necessarily, they don't really have an interest to talk about the same things they're doing it, but they're doing it because that's their job now. That's how they get paid.
You mean like almost like they've cornered themselves into something they have to keep doing?
Exactly.
Is that what you mean? Gotcha. And so what's my advice to avoid doing that? Is that what you're asking? Or like, what do you
I was going to say, and I'm sorry I didn't word the question that well. Let me just put it this way. Perfect. What is your advice on people overcoming that hurdle, whether that's doing something else or overcoming the hurdle in general of being cornered into doing content that you don't necessarily like anymore?
Yeah, no, really, really good question. And I've struggled with that here and there years and years ago before I really kind of figured myself out on YouTube. I would say there's probably two ways that I would advise people to avoid that. One is, if it's not too late for you in this respect, is as you start your channel, try to be as diverse as possible from the jump. because I think the earlier on in your channel and your time on YouTube that you are diverse with what your content is and the topics you're talking about or how you're making your videos, the wider net you've already cast for yourself. So as you hopefully continue to grow and grow, you're growing while people already know that you make some video game stuff and some movie related stuff and some music related stuff. And, maybe you talk about Nintendo a lot, but you also talk about the Xbox a lot. And so it's a Nintendo and an Xbox channel or whatever it means. Like the earlier on you can diversify before you start to build a following, I think the better off you are, because then you haven't cornered yourself. You've already kept yourself open to a variety of things that you might want to talk about down the road at any time. The other one is I think the harder thing, and I've seen some channels do this in the past, but it's a very hard thing to overcome. And I would say if you've already built yourself up to something based on one thing, and you're now wanting to diversify, but you're scared to do it because you've backed yourself into that corner, and you're like, how do I go from talking about video games to talking about my favorite pizza? How do I do that? I would say, honestly, rip the Band-Aid off and just do it. And once you just do it and you make that first pizza video that, not even 100 people are going to watch because they're used to hearing you talk about video games. And it's like, why are you talking about pizza? It's like, if you just do it, and if you want to keep talking about pizza, this is a weird analogy, the pizza analogy, but I'm going to stick with it.
Stick with it.
So okay. I mean, we all like pizza anyway. So
of course.
you've now become a pizza channel, and you're like, how do I do this? Like, you make that first video, no one's going to watch it. But the best thing you can do is say, well, screw it. I need to stop worrying about views and new subscribers for a while and say, I'm now more passionate about this other thing. And so I'm just going to commit to it. And so you need to rip the Band-Aid off by making that first content about that new subject. And if it's what you want to keep doing, just do it. And you need to, it's hard because you're so used to a certain amount of views or a certain amount of subscribers, and then it's going to change dramatically. But if you make that change and then just commit and stick with it and stick with it and stick with it, maybe you even still do the other stuff here and there too, to satisfy the people who want that, you'll eventually just build that other base. And so that taking that option means you have this great growth, and then your growth maybe dips for a minute, and that's going to really sting. But if you stick with it, you can maybe build that growth back up. But now you're building that growth back up, doing the thing you actually want to be doing now, which is pizza. You've gone from gaming to pizza, and that's like what you feel good about. So yeah, I feel like that's the best way. There's a channel out there called it's called Gamer from Mars. I don't know if you've ever heard of that channel. He makes like weird, like pretty short videos about like interesting kind of topics, and a lot of times they're like news or like drama and stuff like that. He is kind of a nerdy gamer guy, but he doesn't really focus on that too much. But he made a video like a year or two ago where he explained how when he first started, he was making videos that were like, I think they were just really low quality gaming commentary, if I remember right. And then one day he made a video that was like a list about like 4chan pranks or something weird. I don't know, something totally different. And he said everyone was yelling at him about like, why are you doing this? Like, this is dumb. Like, where's your normal stuff? We don't like this. But he said he just kind of liked that. He just felt like making that video one day and he really liked it. And what happened was he kind of liked it so much, he started doing it more. And he wasn't seeing a lot of success. And his fans were definitely like not happy. And they were vocal about how not happy. They were like, where's your old stuff? This isn't what I wanted. But he kept doing what he wanted to do. And eventually that format caught on. And that helped him start to grow even bigger than he was doing before when he was making the gaming stuff. So he found the thing that he liked doing more. And he just committed to it. And he took that dip that I talked about, but eventually it just kind of, basically rebranded himself into the thing he was more interested into doing. And then that became the thing that he was known for. And that's what he does. So it's kind of a long-winded answer. I guess there's a lot of parts for me to blab about that, but
it is good because what you're saying is going to help people, man. It's like, and for those of you who are watching, make sure you guys are following Rob. Make sure you guys hit the like button and support both channels because this is the type of content that I like making. I'm glad, Rob. Thank you for that answer.
Yeah. Oh, for sure, man. Yeah.
Thank you. But,
so yeah, I mean, yeah. What do you think?
Honestly, like I said, I agree. It's you really have to take the band-aid off. Like when you said it, that was the idea in my head. It's like you just got to do it, and that's kind of how with this channel I was dragging my feet to make this channel. But one of my good friends really like she pushed me to go ahead and do this, and I finally just said, you know what, let me go ahead and do this. Let me go ahead and stop being stubborn. Let me take her advice and do this. And I am not turning back at all. It's like
Nice.
this is the content that I like making, because talking about, YouTube business, talking about music, talking about video games, I like talking about all three, and I felt like I can't talk about all three on my old channel, because I would do gaming remixes. I would do beat breakdowns with showing people how I'm making the beats of video games and everything, thinking like, hey, I'm still doing gaming content. It's just in a music way. And what I'm seeing is like, nope. YouTube is not going to promote. It's not going to promote this. YouTube's not going to promote that type of content on my channel. I just say, you know what? I'm done with relying on YouTube. I'm just going to do what I want. And that's why I turned my music channel into just the morning show. And I just said, all previous instrumentals, I just said I'll make a playlist for that. Call those breakfast instrumentals. You guys can listen to that playlist, whatever you want. New music from here forward, though, will only be during the morning show. So when you hear new music from me, other than any projects I have, you're going to have to at least watch the entire show. So if you guys want to hear more music, watch the show. So we're going to go ahead and go over to our last break. We have more from Rob for you guys to see, and throw in some more music for you guys. Stay tuned.
Of Rule of Two Review, and welcome back to the channel. And today we are going to have a different kind of conversation than normal. You can obviously tell from the title here. We're not talking about gaming necessarily. We're not talking about any kind of news or anything. I sort of just wanted to take an opportunity here early in the year, while it's still January of 2020, of course, the new decade. I just kind of wanted to take an opportunity to do a little bit of a touch base kind of conversation. Something that I haven't done in a very long time. I've made a couple of videos and conversations about this stuff with you guys in the past, about just the channel or my approach and things like that. And while this isn't necessarily about the channel specifically, it is kind of just more of a bigger picture conversation, just about doing YouTube and specifically being on the gaming side of YouTube and what it's like nowadays, and what I see through my perspective as a content creator and somebody who's also a part-time content creator, not a full-time content creator. I've been doing it for several years, and while my channel isn't huge and never really blew up, I've still definitely garnered quite a bit of a following, and what I think is a pretty significant fan base, and something that I'm really proud of, even though, only 12,000 subscribers in 6 years of doing YouTube.
Welcome back, and I hope you guys enjoyed that last commercial break. We are on the home stretch, and for those of you who don't know Rob, some of you may know Rob, but for those of you who don't know Rob, Rob is a huge, and I mean he is a huge Metroid fan, as you can see with the posters in the background.
Yeah, man.
But I want to ask you right now, how important is Metroid Prime 4 for the Switch?
Oh man, how important is it for the Switch? That's a good question. It's a very specific question. I think it's important for the Switch because it's also important for Metroid, just like for the franchise. The good thing about the Switch is like the Switch is in such a great state right now. It's selling like crazy. They just gave us these insane numbers, and it's like, oh my God, it's done, in 3 years, it's already sold 52 million units. It's just doing so well. Everyone loves it. Any game that's put on the console sells like crazy. So the Switch is in a really good spot. We have some gaps in the library. We're not sure about what the Switch has in 2020 or 2020 and even beyond. And so Metroid Prime 4 becomes a really good game to like fill one of the gaps and slots for like the future lineup for the Switch. But because I think Metroid Prime 4 also represents something really huge for the franchise, because it's a beloved franchise. It's a very long running franchise, one of Nintendo's oldest game series, back to the NES days, the early years of the NES, the first game comes out. And for the most part, it's one of the best rated franchises. They've got a couple of lower rated games, but for the most part, the games are known as being some of the best in the entire industry. Super Metroid and Metroid Prime, Metroid Fusion, these games review like crazy and they sell very well. But Metroid's also in such a unique place because some of their more recent games, even though we have to go way far back because there hasn't been a lot of games the last 10 years, but some of their more recent games are like really divisive. Metroid Other M on the Wii is a super controversial game, as you obviously know, right? That game, people are all over the place on it. I like it, but it's a game that a lot of people don't like. And then Metroid Prime Federation Force on the 3DS. We all know the huge drama around that game.
Of course.
And everyone it was such a mess when that came out. And so other than Samus Returns in 2017, those other two games were so divisive that I kind of feel like people don't think about this, but Metroid is on a bit of a shaky ground, and just in terms of reception. So like the fan base, myself and other Metroid fans are very vocal. We love Metroid. Give us more Metroid. Bring back Samus. This is what we want. But at the same time, 2 of the last 3 games were very controversial, and I think have kind of created a downward trend in a lot of people's eyes for Metroid. And so Metroid Prime 4 coming is a game that has to land. It's got to sell well, and it's got to review well. And the fan base has to be behind it, I think. Because if somehow Metroid Prime 4 comes out and it's not the hit that it needs to be, I think it could actually do some real damage to the franchise. But I will say I don't expect that. I think it's going to be great. I think Nintendo showed us they will do anything. They will move mountains to make this game great because of the delay. Right? They're willing to restart. They were willing to throw away the game that they were making. Can you imagine, dude, how much money that cost for them to do?
Yeah.
But they were like, it's worth it, because if this game isn't a 10 out of 10, it's going to potentially hurt Metroid. And I think it's also why the game that they decided to make for the Switch is Metroid Prime 4 and not a new Metroid game, because Metroid Prime is kind of safe. It's a safe well for them to go back to. And that could be viewed as a negative, but I'm willing to not view it as a negative, because I want Metroid to be successful, and everyone loves Metroid Prime. And so when they showed Prime 4, everyone was like, oh my God, this game. So I think that's why they're doing that. And so it's kind of where I feel about Metroid Prime 4 right now.
I share similar sentiments to you with that. I love the Metroid games. They're hard, but my first introduction to Metroid, actually, people are gonna probably be shocked at me saying this, but my first introduction to Metroid, believe it or not, was actually Metroid Prime 3.
Whoa, that's recent.
That was my first introduction to Metroid.
Now, did you play it on the trilogy, or did you play it on the Wii when it first came out?
On the Wii when it first came out. So I had it on the Wii when it first came out, and it was actually the third game that I bought with my own money, on the Wii.
Sweet.
I remember that my college campus at the time, they would sell video games. I saw Metroid Prime 3. And I said, you know what, let me cop this because I didn't have a GameCube. So I missed out on Metroid Prime 1 and 2. Super Nintendo kid. Super Nintendo had a plethora of video games. So it was easy to miss out on games on the Super NES. I even missed out on Chrono Trigger on the Super NES when it first came out. I didn't play it till I got the ROM. I played the actual ROM before, but I never played the actual game of Chrono Trigger. So it's like I missed out on the Metroid boat, and I didn't have an NES. So it's like my brother did, but I think that got broken somehow. Cause I remember seeing an NES in the house. I remember we had NES games. Yeah. I remember we had Zelda. I remember we had Ninja Gaiden.
Mm-hmm.
But
games, all great games.
But the game we had growing up mostly playing was this Genesis. We played the Sonic games, Shinobi 3, stuff like that. So Metroid, I kind of missed that boat until the Wii. Because there was no Metroid on the N64.
That's true. And they were, what's interesting is they were making a Metroid for the N64, but it kind of got scrapped and it ended up becoming Metroid Prime.
You know what? I'm gonna say this. Don't shoot me for this.
Uh-oh.
But
hot take.
Instead of Perfect Dark, we should have got Metroid Prime on the N64.
That's a weird timeline you're painting. That's such a crazy thought because Perfect Dark was so good.
It was.
It was so good.
But think of the first Metroid and think of how they both play.
Yeah, I can see. I mean, and they both star female protagonist, right? So that's interesting. I mean, Nintendo was stepping into first person and stuff on the 64, right? With
exactly. And that's another reason why with first person shooting, I felt like that would have been well for Nintendo to have their franchise. Even now on the Switch, we have only third party first person shooters mostly.
Yeah, we do. I mean, until Metroid Prime 4 comes out, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, that's all
and that will be the first person shooter on the Nintendo Switch. The only other shooter we have is really Splatoon, and don't get me wrong, Splatoon is a very skillful game. You need to be good at that game. I'm not gonna come at the Splatoon fan base. You have to be skilled in that game. But having a first person shooter, those are games that I like, and I'm hoping, that's why I guess I'm hoping for Apex Legends to come to the Switch because I want more first-person shooters to come over to the Switch. That's just me.
Yeah. Have you played Doom and Wolfenstein on the Switch at all?
Doom and Wolfenstein, I have not gotten a chance to play those games.
Gotcha.
If I do, I played Wolfenstein, but I played it on my PC.
Okay.
Because my PC, it's built to play those games. I even got DBZ Kakarot on my PC instead of getting it on my PS4.
Oh, nice.
Because it's like if I want to play a game, for me shooters, I'm not trying to be a graphics hog or anything like that or anything of that. But 60 frames per second to me is almost needed for shooters these days.
Yeah.
I need a fast frame rate when I'm playing a shooter. That's just me. It's like I play a lot better. People who are watching see me play Apex Legends. I play on the PS4. I'm sluggish. I'm missing my shots. When I play on the PC, I'm way more accurate because one of the things that I like being in these first person shooters is the sniper. That's where
you're that guy.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's like when I played Overwatch, Hanzo was my main all the time. And it's like there's old clips where you'll see headshot if I get in my groove. So it's like that's why I can't wait for Metroid Prime 4 to come to the Switch because it's going to be that game, and I'm hoping for multiplayer. I'm hoping they have a multiplayer mode.
I think it's going to happen. I've gone back and forth in my brain about that, and I get a lot of questions like in my live streams or just on my videos or on Twitter about multiplayer and Metroid. I mean, honestly, people just throw me Metroid questions all the time. It's like my daily routine. And, for a long time, probably like the first year after it was announced, before we knew it was going to be delayed, I was like, they might do a multiplayer in Metroid Prime 4, but they probably won't. I think they're just going to focus on the campaign. They tried it once with Metroid Prime 2, and it wasn't all that great. it worked in Hunters and stuff, but that was a game designed for it. This will be all campaign. But the last year, maybe even 2 years, I've kind of been singing a different tune. Like, the more you think about what that game needs to be, and the fact that they're releasing it on the Switch, and multiplayer stuff is so important nowadays, and Nintendo wants to sell people their online service, by the way, I'm like, it actually makes more and more sense the more I think about it.
Yeah.
So I'm about 50-50. I think that there is at least a 50% shot that there's going to be some kind of multiplayer in the game. And if it's good, I mean, they put multiplayer into Luigi's Mansion 3. Like, who saw that coming?
No one.
Right? It's like, no one. And I haven't tried it. I don't know if you've played it, but I've heard that it's very good in multiplayer. So yeah, I mean, if you want multiplayer in Metroid Prime 4, I think you got a good shot. I think it's going to happen.
Okay, cool.
So, yeah.
But I have to ask you one last thing. And this is probably going to be the granddaddy question of them all.
The granddad. More than Metroid even. Okay. Wow.
Outside of Metroid.
Okay.
What are some other franchises that you would like to see rebirthed and reimagined?
Oh, rebirthed. Oh, I wish you gave me a heads up. I would have thought of a couple. Okay, so
you want me to start off?
Go ahead. You start. Yeah, you go. Yeah.
Give me some ideas. I would like a 3D world of Donkey Kong. Give us a 3D world of Donkey Kong, because I feel like Donkey Kong they're taking the Mario route of doing the 2D side-scrolling route. Give us a 3D Donkey Kong. Or give us a new Sonic, a brand new Sonic ran in HD. Or it's just an old classic, but a few people talked about this game. A few people know about this game. Give us Vector Man again.
Yes. I freaking love Vector Man, dude.
Give us Vector Man. Give us they did a good job, but I say polish up Strider. Polish a good Strider game. Give us
You're a big Sega kid, huh?
I was.
Yeah, I can tell you're a big Sega fan, which is great. I love Sega.
I definitely was. I played the Bloody Roar games as well, which is, please bring that back.
Yeah. I had that on the GameCube.
Wow. See?
Yeah. Because wasn't that that's a fighting game, right? Bloody Roar?
Yes,
they had a GameCube one, and it was like awesome. It was really good.
That's what I want to see. I want to see more reimagined games, and they're doing it. They did it with Mortal Kombat. They reimagined Mortal Kombat. They reimagined Killer Instinct. They reimagined Street Fighter. I'm like, bring us Vector Man, or even bring us back, Earthworm Jim, which was both on the Super NES and the Genesis.
Yes. Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm getting excited when you're talking about stuff here, but like, bro, Earthworm Jim, I bought a Sega Genesis a couple months ago. I haven't had one since I was a kid. Literally just because I was like, I need Earthworm Jim. Like, I just needed it, and I'm so glad they need to bring that back big time, man.
Yes, I agree. Yeah. I feel like these games, not just Nintendo, but other older franchises, they could really capitalize off, not just for nostalgia purposes, but if you reimagine it properly, you can bring forth new audiences. Zelda Breath of the Wild proved that when you reimagine a game to a way where it hasn't really been done well before or done at all like that, you could really bring forth a new audience. I would like to see. All right, I'm going to say this. I'm going to say this because there's people watching. I'm saying this for all you guys who are watching who know how much of a big fan I am of this game I am. If they're gonna do if not a reimagine, do a remaster or a remake, please bring back Mario RPG, please.
Mario RPG.
Like, I'm talking like with Gino. I was like, instead of Gino for Smash, give me the real Gino in a remake.
Yeah,
something like that. But who knows? Square may end up doing that. Square said they're remaking classics, so who knows? But what? Yeah,
Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, I think there'd be a huge market for Mario RPG. I know that people love like the older Paper Mario games and the Mario and Luigi games. And I know that they're like different, but they're in like the Mario RPG. They're Mario games that are RPGs. And I've never played the original, the Super Nintendo one you're talking about, but I know that people love that game. And if they came back and did something with that, man, I think it'd be massive.
I think it would too. I think it would too. If you could make a easier Zelda game like Link's Awakening, which is an easier base Zelda game, you could make an easier Mario RPG. Like a easy, it's still good, and I think a lot of people would enjoy it. But what are some of the games that you probably would think of? You know, decide just do some games out to give you some ideas.
Yeah, no, I'm glad you did. So if I could think of one series that I want to have a rebirth and a reawakening, it's Silent Hill, which is interesting because that was in the news recently, because it's like maybe they're going to make these games again. I don't know. Konami's obviously been weird. Konami is a problem, which is unfortunate, but I adore the Silent Hill franchise so much. Those games are so good. They're not like great gameplay games. They're very scary. They're about the ambience and the atmosphere, like we were talking about earlier, which I just love that stuff. I like scary games and scary movies too. And they also tell, I don't know how familiar you or anyone watching is, but they tell very cerebral, introspective stories that are very much like, at least the good Silent Hill games do this, I should say, where they kind of break down the human psyche a little bit. That's part of why Silent Hill 2 is so famous and is considered the best Silent Hill game, is because of how it breaks down the psyche of the main character in a way that, you know, also applies to you as you're playing it. You're like, wow, I've got those same kind of issues. I know I do, because I'm a human, just like this guy is. And the game really gets into that and makes that stuff part of what makes the game scary. And it's just a great franchise, and it's been dead for far too long, and I just want them to bring it back so badly.
Nice.
Yeah. You also, you know what? I'm gonna piggyback off one of yours though, because when you said Donkey Kong, I think I've been thinking about that too, because I love the Donkey Kong Country games so much, and I love 2D games, and it's like I want Donkey Kong to continue, but I don't necessarily want a third Donkey Kong Country, right? It's like I want Donkey Kong, but I want something different. Exactly. And I never played Donkey Kong 64, but I think that is like a third-person Donkey Kong game, right? Yeah. So maybe they could like do something like that in like a modern, kind of a modern thing.
Which will be excellent if they could do something like that in like today's graphics, today's perspectives and everything. I feel it would do really well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I also think that I would love to see F-Zero come back. That's a game that I think needs to come back big time. And they can do so much more with that franchise now, with the power of systems, the speed of systems. Mario Kart was a great example of how they evolved that series by adding like the gravity thing, and you're going upside down and doing like that stuff is crazy, and it's so cool, and it makes the game feel new and different. And if they bring back F-Zero and they add like combat to it, and they add different vehicles or something, they obviously online play, I think that would be huge. Sticking with Nintendo, Star Fox is one that absolutely needs to have that happen for sure. I think that there's a lot of life in Star Fox, to do a lot of really cool stuff, especially in the Switch era. So I would love to see that come back as well. And you know, you were bringing up some older franchises, some older things. Obviously, I want to double down on Earthworm Jim because I just think that series is amazing. And you know, you brought up Vector Man. I don't know if you remember this. Tell me if you do. But I want to say in the PS2 era, they were working on like a 3D Vector Man 3, right?
They were. It was PS2, almost PS3 era. It was like closer. It was towards the end of the PS2 area, around where God of War 3 came out, I think. It was around that time period that came out. Because I heard about it. I was like, yo, are they really remaking? And then it just fell off. Because I actually I Googled it. Because I said, yo, who is still talking about Vector Man? I was still in college at the time. I said, who's still talking about Vector Man? And lo and behold.
Yeah, after this podcast, you should just Google it just to kind of see, because there are some images of like a 3D Vector Man model and stuff. And I remember seeing it in magazines in like Game Informer. And I was like, sweet, a new Vector Man, that'll be awesome. And then it just got scrapped. It never happened.
There's games like that happen all the time. I feel like the one game that I saw in a magazine that I ended up seeing on GameSpot TV before it became X-Play, the one game, I think this is the actual game that sold me on MMORPGs actually, and that's Phantasy Star Online 1.
Great game.
That fantastic game. You go on the beta for PSO2?
I think so. I'm really excited for it. One of my bandmates and one of my two bands, he is a huge fan of Phantasy Star. He's like, I might buy an Xbox just for this game. Because I think it's only Xbox and PC, if that sounds right. And so I think he's thinking about doing it.
I'm hoping, I'm holding my breath for getting a new account because I'm going to play it on PC. I'm hoping they allow cross progression with the older accounts. Because if they do, I already have a PSO2 account for years ago.
Oh.
So I that's how much I'm a huge PSO fan. So,
nice. Yeah, I mean, my brother was so addicted to it on the Dreamcast, you know, like when it was new and we were all dial-up internet plugging into our Dreamcast and he was playing that game.
Yep.
And I was like, dude, this is awesome. Yeah, that was the way we did it. And yeah, so I'm really excited for that.
That's how it started. In fact, that's another franchise, not Phantasy Star Online, but Phantasy Star. They could bring that back.
Yeah, like as like a straight RPG, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. You know, I'll say one last one, and it's a big one. It's not obscure at all, but it will surprise you. And actually, it's Metroid, as weird as that sounds. And
2D?
I say that because so if we talk about like kind of like a rebirth or like a changing of a franchise, I am somebody who I'm thrilled about Metroid Prime 4 because Metroid Prime is my favorite all-time video game. And so it's like, okay, we're going to continue this story. We're going to stick to first person and we're going to find out why there needs to be a fourth Metroid Prime game. That's great. I cannot wait for it. However, I still think that Metroid works when it's trying a lot of different styles. And I think that there's still room to evolve the series. I think it's amazing in 2D. I think it's actually best in 2D. I think they killed it in first person 3 times. And I think when you look at a game like Metroid Other M, which like we said is so divisive and so many people hate that game or don't like that game, and there's only a few people like me that think it's actually pretty good and find a lot of good in it. Do what?
I said you either hate it or love that game.
Yeah, you pretty much do either hate or love it. Yeah. And so there's few people who feel that way about it, but I think that there's a lot of redeeming aspects to the gameplay of that game. And it makes me think of kind of like you said with Donkey Kong, like could they do something different with Metroid where maybe it's just a big third person kind of thing? You know, people talk about making Metroid like Breath of the Wild, and I don't know that I necessarily need that. Yeah, it's like, I mean, people just want the open world. They just want everything to be open world now. And I would welcome an open world Metroid game, but I do kind of like the idea of just a third person perspective that just does a bunch of weird stuff. And
I agree.
I mean, there's so much lore, there's so much gameplay. She's such an interesting character. And there's just a huge universe to explore. I think that there's something that they can do to evolve Metroid after Metroid Prime 4 comes out. That's not just a 2D game. That's not just a first person game. That just does something new. And so I would like to see that, 5-6 years down the road when we get to the game after Metroid Prime 4, I would like to see them kind of take a chance again. So
okay, cool.
Yeah.
Well, I'm gonna close out with one last question. Now, usually the last question I ask is, do you have any advice for any content creators in general? But we kind of touched on that in the beginning.
Yeah, we did.
So I'm gonna ask something a little bit different to close out on, and it's gonna be still in the realm of gaming, and it's
okay.
It fits well. What are your thoughts on Nintendo bringing back Star Wars to as video games? Because on the N64, we had games like Rogue Squadron, we had Rogue One Racer. We even have a game that many people don't talk about, but I love this game so much. Shadows of the Empire.
Oh, love it. Love that game.
So what are your thoughts on should Nintendo bring back Star Wars to their dedicated consoles, basically to the Switch?
Well, I mean, absolutely. I mean, so absolutely. And I mean, you know this too. We haven't talked about this, but I am a massive Star Wars fan too, right up with like Metroid, and Star Wars is like my favorite thing in the world. It's in a bit of a weird spot right now, but I still love it to death. Star Wars video games are so important to gaming. And like you said, Nintendo has had some amazing Star Wars games. In fact, the GameCube was a great era. GameCube and PS2 and Xbox was a great era for Star Wars video games. The last great era, there were tons of games spanning like the original trilogy and the prequel trilogy, which was like super new at that time. And there were so many of those games coming to the GameCube. And like you said, on the 64 had Shadows of the Empire, one of the greatest ever made, in my opinion.
I love
the
that
racer.
game.
It's so good. It's very dated. It is not easy to play now, but when it came out, it was so amazing in the music and
that was
great.
That was actually one of the first games I got Christmas morning when I got my 64. Next to Mario 64 and Shadows of the Empire were my first 2 64 games.
Dude, that's a good Christmas. That is a killer Christmas, man. Oh my god. And so when we look at the Switch, I mean, yeah, I think a lot of people would like to see Star Wars games come to the Switch. They absolutely need to. Obviously a lot of that is up to EA, who right now has temporary exclusive rights to making Star Wars games. So they've got to be making good Star Wars games, and then they have to decide to put them on Nintendo's console. And they haven't been making many Star Wars games, and they certainly haven't put the couple that they've made on the Switch. And so there's a really just a bunch of nonsense kind of happening there. But I think that people almost forget that contract with EA isn't permanent. And I think in 2023, it's going to be up. And hopefully if it's not renewed, then I think we might start to see a plethora of Star Wars games start to come out again, where we used to get one like every year, every 2 years. And they were just they weren't sequels. They were just random one-off Star Wars games. And I think we might see that come back. And I would be shocked if at that time we don't see Star Wars games come to, the Switch, or if Nintendo has a new console out at that time, whatever is happening at that time. I think that Star Wars will come to Nintendo's console, because we know that the Nintendo audience, just like any console's audience, would love Star Wars games. I mean, it's crazy they haven't put anything on the Switch yet, other than they've released downloaded versions of a Jedi Outcast, which is a very old but very great Star Wars game, and then they're also bringing Jedi Academy, which is another very old game. But like, what about new stuff, right? Like, let's get some Clone Wars games. Let's get some movie-based games. We want to play as like Luke Skywalker or Han Solo, like on our Switch. It should totally be happening. So, and it would be interesting to maybe to more answer your question, like if Nintendo maybe sought it out, and if they did more exclusive stuff. Like, what if they got a Rogue Squadron 4? Maybe Nintendo can work to say, let's bring an exclusive Rogue. Yeah. And they were working on one years ago that never got made, and it got scrapped and Factor 5 shut down. But maybe Nintendo could work with Lucasfilm to bring that back in some way once EA is no longer involved. So I think that the Star Wars audience and Nintendo audience have a lot of overlap, and I think there would be a lot of success there. So it's a really good question, and I would love to see it happen. I think we just have to wait for EA to kind of be out of the picture, and a different company who's more into working with Nintendo to kind of do that. So
unfortunately, EA is not impressed with Nintendo's sales, but that's another story for another day. But
it is.
I definitely want to thank you for coming on, man. This has been a great interview. People, everyone who's watching, make sure you are following my friend here, Rob Rule 2 Review, both on Twitter and on YouTube. Fantastic content. If you stay here that long, then you agree that it's super enjoyable content. So, like we say in every video, if you enjoyed this episode of the Beats for Breakfast morning show, please hit that like button. Please hit that subscribe button. And most of all, you make sure you share this with a friend. This is Avedon and Rob of Ruler to Review, and we are out. Peace.